Hi everyone, welcome to this episode of Community Conversations. Today I'm excited to be in conversation with a friend and colleague, Stacy Robben from the Boldt company. I first met Stacy a few years ago when SagePresence assisted the Boldt company on a couple of pursuits, and meeting her was an immediate connection that I thoroughly enjoyed. Most recently, we had the opportunity to connect again at AIA National Conference, as well as the National Conference for SMPS Amplify in Atlanta. Stacy is a dynamic human being with a tremendous experience and knowledge about the AEC industry and marketing as a whole. I hope you enjoy my conversation. Well, hi, Stacy. Thank you so much for being our guest today. It's so great to see you again.
Thanks, Troy. It's good to be here.
For our viewers out there who maybe haven't had an opportunity to meet you yet, tell us a little bit about yourself and what led you into the construction industry.
I had an associate's degree and wasn't sure what I wanted to do with myself. So I started my career in public relations. I worked for a firm based in St. Louis, and we ended up representing a group of community civic leaders. And one of those leaders worked for a big national construction firm in St. Louis at the time. And it just happened to be that we became friends, and he was looking for some help in the marketing department. And yes, it was in the time of newspaper ads, and I saw that ad. He mentioned it to me, but I saw the ad and I responded to the ad. And so in 1992, I joined Turner Construction Company in St. Louis. And there it sort of started and has grown from there. I've worked the majority of my career in construction, but I've also worked for 8 or 9 years in architectural design, also always in a marketing or business development capacity. So my first title, I believe, was sales secretary. While I had a computer on my desk, right behind me on my credenza, I had a typewriter too. So welcome to professional services in construction.
Absolutely. And tell me a little bit about those early days in your career, and what was it like trying to navigate marketing in a world that maybe hadn't fully embraced it yet? Maybe it's a world that's still trying to embrace marketing and business development. But what were those early days like for you?
Well, remember, there was no internet invented yet. So we were using Sorkin's directory and street maps and to navigate just to get the networking going. But as a marketer, I hadn't heard of SMPS at the time. And I think I was certainly more bashful and shy about asking for things than I am now. But it was difficult, and it was sort of living in a bubble, if you will. You know, I worked for the manager of business development. We had a marketing coordinator at the time. So I was sort of an assistant to both of them. And as technology evolved, as the internet came about, we certainly made our lives so much easier with the access of information. But for the longest time, you know, it was the bird dogs. It was word of mouth and pounding the pavement and getting out there and finding leads and opportunities. So very different. Again, as technology evolved and information became more accessible, life got a lot easier for us. However, it got easier for our competitors too, if that makes sense. So we were all sort of moving up and into the information age at the same time. We did boards. There was no PowerPoint really used at the time. We presented with presentation boards, and we had to print on plotters and spray mount and all sorts of things. And it was all black and white, and we still have used slides on the slide carousel. So vastly different than we have today.
And what was the intersection for you with SMPS? How did you first find the organization, and how has it been beneficial for you in your career journey?
I will start off by saying this. My biggest regret about SMPS is I didn't find it. I didn't find it until I was well on my way in the industry, probably 8-ish years into my job still at Turner. I found out about it through, we had some changes going on with the organization at the time in St. Louis. And so we had some options as to what we wanted to do. And I agreed to move to another office. So I moved up to Chicago. The marketing staff in Chicago, one of them had belonged to SMPS in Chicago. And mind you, I'm moving from much smaller area in St. Louis to Chicago. And I was, I heard about it, I learned about it, I saw the mailings come through, I was really bashful and just shy. And I didn't think that, my boss would find it worthy of me to join a professional organization and to pay that money. Good grief. So over time, I finally asked, and I remember the gentleman's response to me. He seemed upset that I was bashful. He said, Stacy, of course. And actually, he used to call me by my last name. He was a military guy. He called all the guys by their last name and all the women by their first name, but he called me by my last name. And for the longest time, I took it as an insult. And now I think he was just, I was like his swim buddy.
Right.
So now I know it was a compliment. But yeah, I asked him if I could join, and he said, of course you can join. And that, seriously, the trajectory of my career has done nothing short of steadily up and to the right.
Excellent. And tell me about what some of those early, whether it's regional conferences or national conferences, what were some of those early experiences like for you, and what did you gain from them?
My first conference was a national conference, and I actually sat for the CPSM exam. I believe it might have been the second year, maybe the third year it was offered. But I made it a goal, and I sold that to my boss at the time as why I should be going to this national conference. It helped that the conference was hosted in Chicago. At that point, I had moved back to St. Louis, but that helped that it was somewhere near a vicinity of our office. I sat for the exam. It was taken with a number 2 pencil at the time. At that conference, I met 2 to this day who are still mentors to me, both out of Indianapolis. And the friendships that we formed and the knowledge that they transferred over to me and the networking has been nothing short of, perfect. I say this and I truly mean it. If it weren't for what I've learned, the education and the people, especially the people of SMPS, I would not be where I am today and sitting in the chief marketing officer role for a national construction company.
That's outstanding. What have you found in your journey there that is, let me see how I want to phrase this question. When someone new comes into the experience of SMPS, it can be sometimes overwhelming. All new people, new experiences. There's not only the marketing front, but there's also the business development front. What advice do you have to newcomers in SMPS on how to really utilize that network of people?
Don't be shy. And you hear this so many times, but truly get involved. It's not just what you learn. It's not just the networking, but truly it's the camaraderie. And even though you don't think, you might be just chumming it up with someone on your committee or another board member, you're learning the whole time. You're learning, first and foremost, you're learning leadership skills. And make no doubt about it, you don't get to the table unless you understand the business acumen of your business and you have leadership skills and you're exhibiting those to those folks you work with and your leadership at your company. Get involved. I know proposal season and it's networking conference season, but just get involved and see who you meet. Again, I have lifelong friends and mentors through SMPS that I would not be where I am if it weren't for their leadership and their shoulder to cry on. And I've given them my shoulder too.
When you look at the world that we're in now, in a post-COVID, I'll say in quotes, world, or this continue to evolve world, what are some of the unique challenges that you've had to face in your role now in the last year and as we move into the next year? How are you positioning yourself and your current firm to be successful in the climate that we're in?
If I had my druthers, I would always have meetings face-to-face. As a marketer, as a business developer, I connect better with people face-to-face. We had to learn how to do this on a daily, hourly, half-hourly basis through COVID. And I would argue with you that I never thought it would be possible, never in a million years. So we, as you know, we've had to learn to present virtually, tell a compelling story to a client on why they want to hire us to be their construction partner for the next 1, 2, 5, 6 years. That's hard to do. that's hard to do online. So we've had to learn all of that. We've had to learn to, look into the camera and to not fidget, which I'm doing both of not. But it was difficult, and we're all here to see that it worked and we can do it. We've certainly moved way farther ahead than this company has been in terms of digital marketing. It's not just good enough to have your website be a brag book. You have to have a call to action. You have to have a compelling story for them to want to give you a call or try you out or send you a request to have a meeting, to get to know, or a request for information. Video has moved light years ahead of where I ever thought it would be. It's not good enough to have, oh, we should do a video this year. We should do a video this month, this week. How do we tell our story through video? And again, make it compelling and have a call to action. And things are just moving super fast. So again, if you would have told me 2 years ago that we could reproduce or produce a brand new website in just a few months, I would not have thought it possible, but we did it. We did it mostly internally with some help of a consultant in 3 months. That's, wow. A couple of years ago, that would have been unheard of.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And in your role now, tell us more a little bit about your role as it is today and what your team looks like. How do you navigate, in the world of SMPS, in the world of marketing, you have the one person shops that have to do it all. And then you've got larger firms that have a position maybe like yourself, and there's a team under you. Explain a little bit about how your process works within the firm you're at now.
Sure. So I work in our enterprise support group, which we usually call corporate headquarters. So I have a team here locally, and we provide support to all of our operating groups. In terms of day-to-day qualifications, proposals, interviews, for the most part, that happens at the operating group level. So we have marketing and business development staff in our operating groups. They're kind of our day-to-day firefighters, if you will. Our job, they're our customer. Our job is to support them with content, with graphics support if they need it, with writing support if they need it, coming up with a strong infrastructure for them to do their jobs more effectively and more efficiently, quicker, providing content for proposals, making sure our standards are up to date, creating videos for them, helping them massage and edit their social media messaging. Most of that flows up through the enterprise support group. And so we do most of the posting. They feed us information, they feed us content. We do sometimes massage that or iron it out just to polish it up. We have in our corporate team, we have CRM expertise, digital expertise, graphics, proposal writing, content writing, and that's overseen by our director of marketing and communications, who reports up to me. On the operating group side, we have business development and marketing staff at just about every one of our operating groups across the country. So right now, some of those folks report directly to me. Boldt is moving into a matrixed organization. So eventually, some of these enterprise support functions will all report up and through our corporate teams through a dotted or a solid line. So it's an interesting structure we have now, and we're very much moving into more of a progressive organizational structure so we can best support our operating groups at every level.
Excellent. And when you, in your role, do you have the opportunity to travel to all of the locations? Do you stay home, within your region? How was your travel experience within your role?
I certainly have the opportunity, and coming out of COVID, I should be getting out there even more than I am. I still participate on a few committees and boards, so I certainly am traveling for those meetings. But yes, I can pick up the phone and call and go visit. Last month I was in our Sacramento office. That happened to be a really good tag team between a conference and another meeting I was attending in a nearby state. But yeah, I can visit our offices. I absolutely love visiting our job sites in different offices because you get a very, very different perspective on a project that's being built in Wisconsin than you do in California, than you do in Oklahoma, than you do in Chicago. So yeah, I do get the opportunity to get out and travel.
And with that travel, is there a certain area of the country that you love to visit? Or is home, and that's where you love the most? What is the favorite part of the country for you?
It's hard to say. I'm a Midwestern gal, so I kind of like hanging out here in the Midwest. We just came back from a trip from Oklahoma, so certainly more. The climate was a little nicer in Oklahoma City than it was in Appleton, Wisconsin at the time, so that was really nice. I am a little bit timid around cold weather, so I'd much rather visit, our job sites out here when it's a little warmer than it is today.
Sure.
But I can't say that I have a favorite part of the country. I like being home. I love traveling also, so it's kind of a toss-up.
Yeah, yeah. When you think about 2023, or you think about what lies ahead, on two fronts, I'm curious to know what your take is on the upcoming infrastructure work. Is that anything that your firm is seeing as possibility, and are you positioning yourself for new opportunities that are going to come through that?
In terms of infrastructure, we really, Boldt doesn't do too much heavy highway. We don't do any at all, frankly. It's more vertical.
Got it.
We are seeing an uptick in opportunities, certainly with renewable energy. And we are invested in solar and also in wind. We have some new ventures that we're not talking about just yet, but it's very exciting in the renewable space. Very, very exciting. And that will certainly, how the government structures tax credits and that kind of thing, that will certainly be really opportunistic for our customers and clients. So in terms of that type of infrastructure, most certainly we're positioning for that.
Excellent, excellent. And then my second question is, a lot of the conversation that I've been hearing recently within the industry is this idea of, is there a looming recession coming? Are we in it? Is it coming, et cetera? What are you seeing and what are you hearing within the industry as it relates to the recession?
We're hearing same, of course. And while, we can sit here and just be very fearful, at the same time, we're seeing more mega projects than ever, I would say, in the history since I've been on the planet. Those opportunities are coming fast and furious. And honestly, they're coming so fast that it is a concern for us in terms of staffing. Supply chain is still in a not a great spot since COVID hit us. Staffing is very tight. So we have, our eyes are big, yes, and we're seeing these fantastic opportunities. We're approaching them, I would say, with grace. We know this won't last forever. We could turn our backs on some of our smaller projects and some of our customers that won't ever have $1 billion project. We're not doing that. As tempting as it could be, we're not doing that. We are looking with a more critical eye on some of the work and deciding where we need to be and trying to position for some of this other, renewable work and other opportunities that are coming before us. But we're trying to keep all different colors, shapes, and sizes of rocks in our jar. Yeah, we're prepared to be a diverse provider of construction and building services.
When you think about the construction industry, I'm curious to know, pivoting slightly here, but also in relation as it refers to diversity. I know DEI is a big conversation within the construction industry, within AEC as a whole. I would love to know your perspective on being a woman in the construction space. What have you learned? What have you seen? And what excites you about the future of a more diverse construction environment?
It's a little bittersweet. When I got into construction, it was so vastly different than it is today. And I'm a female in the construction industry, but I'm not out in the field. I'm not dealing with multiple trade partners and my own team out in the field, where it really is a little more rough and tumble, certainly more aggressive. I'm in the office, which makes a lot of difference. That said, I am blessed to be part of our C-suite. And we are working hard. Boldt just brought on a director of DEI for enterprise support services. It is a hot button. In my mind, it's always been a hot button. It's getting a lot more focus and attention, and I want to say positive attention. I look around and I see all of these organizations and committees and national, holidays, if you will, celebrating women in construction. And it just does a body's heart good to see that. And we didn't have that. I'm 30 years into my construction career now. And again, I've never worked out in the field. I've never built anything. So to see where we've come in just the 30 years that I've been involved in this industry is nothing short of, life-changing. I feel very fortunate to have gotten my foot in the door when I did. And it's changed. I would encourage any woman, any female to really consider this industry. It is so gosh darn exciting. I was just talking to my colleague about, I miss day-to-day business development and that thrill of the chase and getting out and meeting with new people all the time. And I see more and more women, especially in business development, than ever before. And I would just tell you that we also have soft skills and we understand the business of our world, maybe more so than we were given credit in the past.
Yeah. When you think about the future of the industry as a whole, what are some of the things that are exciting you? You alluded to some renewable energy elements as one item, but for you personally, what are you excited about as the future unfolds for the AEC industry?
I will say first and foremost, it's the industrialization of construction. We were dabbling in this for several years here at Boldt. And when COVID hit, we immediately reached out to an architectural design partner that did a lot of work in the healthcare space. And we took what we had as, the start of building modular components of buildings. And we very, very, very quickly ramped up to create essentially an intensive care unit that ensured infection protection and infection control. We have taken that and crafted and prototyped other types of not only healthcare spaces, but now we're in the manufacturing world and the industrial world doing the same thing for some clients in all sorts of areas of the country that we never dreamt possible. This technology and the excitement and energy around it is that is infectious, and it is growing by leaps and bounds quite regularly. So for me, that is really exciting. Different than architecture, we could chase architectural projects from around the country and not have to worry about our teams having to pick up and move their families to be close. And construction's not so. You need to be boots on the ground. Well, this changes it a little bit. We need to be there to make sure the foundations are ready and to make sure the modular pieces go together as they need to. But for the most part, we can build some of these modular components in shops around the country. And we have a few shops open now where we are building modular components for projects in areas of the country where we don't have offices, and we won't need to send someone to go live there for 4 or 5 years. The speed at which we can build these is ridiculous. And so I will say that the supplies aren't any cheaper or less expensive, but the speed at which we can execute the work shaves off time, and that is the money savings there. So I think the whole industry is excited. We're very excited because we've honed our craft and we have developed an internal expertise, and we've developed a really nice array of partners across the country who are super happy to jump in and work with us on these projects.
Excellent, excellent. It is exciting to think about how the future is continuing to unfold as I have conversations with a variety of folks within the AEC space. Technology is one of those key things that is going to continue to impact the success of the future of construction as a whole, whether it's the build or the concrete, or, I was speaking to a number of people at different conferences, and I always, as a technology kid myself, I've always enjoyed seeing where that future lies, which also was curious for me as it relates to something like AR or VR. Is your firm utilizing anything like virtual reality? And if so, how?
Yeah. So I see it quite a bit more in the healthcare side, showing the physicians and the nurses and the staff and healthcare system what a patient room is going to look like. We could do cardboard cities, and those are still very much appreciated by some staff, so they can physically get into the model and move around. Sure. But certainly doing virtual reality and letting them put on the goggles and kind of walk around the room and say, oh, this is way too close to the patient bed. I don't want to turn around and put my back to that patient. We see that quite a bit. And that's been, we've been doing that for a few years now, so it's not totally new. Sure. Augmented reality, sort of the same boat there. Mm-hmm. I remember back in, I think it was 2005 or 6, when everyone was excited about something called BIM and flash detection. And now that's just a given. Who would draw a building by hand anymore? And who would think about not putting their information in the cloud so it can be accessible by all partners at any place in the world? So, it's just a matter of time before all of this is just day to day, and we're on to the next thing. And what that is, who can say for sure? But again, that information highway is just blazing. Yes, yeah.
Now those are the things that you're looking forward to. I probably should have flip-flopped how I asked these questions, but what's the thing that keeps you awake at night? Is there anything that is concerning, keeping you awake, things that you wonder how it's going to unfold?
Well, of course, the things we're dealing with right now, supply chain issues, most certainly cost escalation is really disturbing. We were awarded a major project just over 2 years ago, and we're talking with lots of sets of zeros behind it. And cost is not going down. It's just continuing to go up, up, up. The potential of that project, potential for it to be canceled or pushed back, keeps me up at night. Yeah. Our clients are changing too. We used to be able to, really get a good handle on the facilities team and the PDC team. And those decisions are no longer being made even at that level. Most often it's moving up to the C-suite level in client organizations. And there are only so many hours of the day. And while we will do all of our best work to get to that C-suite level, they only have so many hours in the day to be able to connect with us. And losing, one key relationship sort of has a trickle down effect. So maintaining the relationships at the appropriate levels, which oftentimes is all of the levels. Right. And not just at the very tippy top. Those things are worrisome. And how do we maintain the relationships when instead of working for 200 customers, we're working for 800 customers? That's always worrisome. And buying and selling is an emotional pull. And if you don't have those relationships, so many times you risk losing the customer.
Yes, yeah, lots of things to maintain in a human-driven world. Still, we're still a relationship-driven world. No matter how the technology or the times are changing, we're still reacting emotionally and with our hearts and minds as it relates to projects. Pivoting a second back to organizational connections, we talked a little bit about S&P, we referenced AIA. Are there any other organizations that you're a part of or that you feel that those in the AEC space should be looking at as well?
Sure. Well, I have a Master's of Healthcare degree. And I did that so I could learn to get closer to my clients at the time, which were mostly in the healthcare space. So I still attend a couple of healthcare conferences. I am fortunate to be on the advisory board of Healthcare Facilities Symposium Expo, which has an annual conference. And we meet as an advisory board a couple times a year virtually, and then at least once in person. I am also wrapping up an advisory board role with my alma mater, Southern Illinois University at Edwardsville, and their construction leadership. And generally, I go help teach one of their courses every year. So I'm still involved there. So ASHE is another big healthcare group that I'm a member of. I'm not as active as I once was, just because I'm not doing day-to-day healthcare business development like I was. Those are the big ones for me. I served for several years on the AIA Academy of Architecture for Health webinar committee. And that's just a labor of love, but it's also a great way to keep your network going. And all of these activities I do, not just to learn myself, I do it to give back, but I also do it to keep my network strong. And folks who are involved in those organizations are out there meeting people every day. I've always said this: if you told me about an opportunity or an owner or a client, I feel very confident that in probably a handful of calls, of phone calls or texts or emails, I could make a connection and get some information for you. Because the network in our industry, the network is everything.
Mm-hmm. As you think about the new year and those networking opportunities, are you finding yourself now, you alluded to it in the beginning, but are you finding yourself now, is it still traditional phone call, or is it all, the Zoom space, coffees? How are you trying to navigate these BD relationships?
All of the above, really. When I travel, I try to do multiple meetings, so I'm getting kind of the most bang for my travel dollar, if you will. And also for my time. There are some calls you just need to make and do, but I would say for the most part, I do it because I want to stay in touch, and I enjoy learning and hearing what everyone else is up to and doing. It informs how our business goes here at Boldt. It informs me personally. It's fulfilling for me. I enjoy it. So I can't imagine it ever going away totally. What I am seeing a change is as my customers, as our customers get younger, they are certainly more open to dropping you a quick text like, hey, I need pricing on this yesterday. Can you guys help us out? Where back in the day, that would have been a phone call. They would have gotten my voicemail. 3 hours later, I might have called them back to get their voicemail. Maybe we would have sent a fax. I don't know. But
sure.
But today it's like everyone is texting and LinkedIn, sending notes via LinkedIn, and very much a digital space today, and a 24-hour a day space as well. It's Sunday afternoon, Saturday evening, Monday morning. It doesn't really matter. It's like you're working 24 hours a day, and that's why it's so important to do work that you love and enjoy.
So how do you find for yourself, what is your work-life balance, if such a thing does exist in a world that's 24/7? What, outside of the construction world, what are your hobbies? What do you like to do?
I'm a big gardener, and having relocated from 500 miles south up here, gardening time is a little more limited outdoors anyway.
Sure.
I have 2 grown sons. My youngest graduates college in 2 weeks. And they don't live near me. So I love getting out and seeing them. And all 3 of us enjoy music.
Great.
So, music, gardening, reading. I listen to Audible in my commutes and when I travel. So if I'm not reading, I'm listening. And pretty social, hanging out with friends.
Absolutely. Kind of. Well, coming up to my last couple of questions here. One, since you reference books, is there any 1 or 2 books that you would highly recommend for people in this industry that they should be reading if they haven't read yet? Or listen to?
Yeah, that's a tough one. The last book I read in its entirety was on an operating system that we have adopted here at Boldt. And actually, I heard quite a bit of chatter in Atlanta at the Amplify conference, and that's Traction by Gino Wickman. It's really good because it gets to the heart of the matter. Figure out your issues, set your goals. They call them rocks.
Yep.
Meet quite frequently to go over it so nothing slips, and there's no procrastination because that deadline is always looming. That's the one that comes to mind. The book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, or vice versa.
Yep.
I have the hard copy of that. I also have the Audible. That hard copy is underlined and highlighted. And while some of it's a little outdated in terms of, every Saturday night after dinner, go back and reflect upon your week. and what you're going to do next week. Who gets that luxury, right? But some of the principles in that book, I don't think will ever go away. And I would, if you haven't read, I can't imagine there's a whole lot of people out there who haven't been introduced to that book, but that's always a standard foundational book for me.
That's outstanding. My last question is, if there are people that are watching this, they're looking to make a career change, they're looking to explore opportunities, what kind of talent are you looking for at Boldt? What are you looking for team members to join you?
Personally, I think it's sort of an innate desire, that whole, and I said it before, the thrill of the chase, the mentality. In that book that I referenced by Gino Wickman, the piece that deals with people gives you some clues. It says, does she get it? Does she get what we're trying to do? Does she want it? Does she want to get it done? Does she want what we have to offer? Does she want what she could have in her career? And does she have the capability to deliver it? I think if you could come up with those three qualities in someone, the sky's the limit for them in any career, but most certainly in construction. I have a desire to win. I understand our business. I understand how we make a profit. So I'm just not out there chasing the bottom line or, the top line, one or the other. I'm there for both. I want to grow, but I want to grow profitably. Understanding that it's not just about winning a job, because a lot of times you can win a job and sink your company if you're not careful. A positive, happy attitude. I'm so grateful that we are back in the office, and we do have a hybrid and a little bit more of a flexible schedule than we ever have in construction. We're blessed. Again, I'm in the corporate office, so we can have someone work from home one day and the rest of us are here. And so we work very well together that way. But when we were all apart and we weren't together, I most certainly missed the camaraderie and the fellowship of my team, and not just my team in the BD marketing space, but I'm talking about the finance and accounting folks and the HR folks and IT and leadership. I'm very blessed to have us mostly together, generally speaking, at some point, or on a Teams or a Zoom call. So I would say, having the capability to deliver and getting it and wanting it, that's the biggest thing that we're looking for. We follow the thought, we weren't the originators of this, humble, hungry, and smart. At Boldt, we've added the word gritty. It's not always pleasant working in construction, and I will tell you, it's not easy, but we try to make the most of it and make it fun and exciting and enjoyable. As a part employee-owned company, we're part family and part employee-owned. We all have skin in this game, and our careers are long, and we work a lot. We spend a lot of time at work, so we try to make it the best for everyone and leave the day feeling happy and fulfilled.
Excellent. Well, that sounds like a great place to work, a great place to be, and a great group of people to be with. I thoroughly have enjoyed our time today, Stacy. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day, I'm sure, to reflect with me, to chat about the industry as a whole. You're one of those community members that I've met over the years, and I've just always enjoyed our opportunity to connect. So thank you again.
Thanks so much. The pleasure was mine.